Okay, hello. Just a quick update on GraphQL. I haven't really changed any API surface here, but I wanted to show you something. So if you remember, we had the queries here. So we query and we resolve the query, and then we return the data. And then we have the mutations, where we have the query for the mutation, and then we have this update function, which allows us to optimistically update the state. Now the thing is, this might go wrong. There might be an error that is returned. So what do you do about that? Well, going through all this GraphQL stuff, I got this idea of revertible actions. So basically we know about all the mutations, which means that we are also able to revert these mutations for you. So let's look at an example here. If we move to the rate, and now I'm going to click change rate. And when we move to the DevTools, we see that when I click change rate, it ran the add rate action, and it optimistically pushed this new rate into the USD currency array. And then it tried to perform the actual mutation, but since this mutation doesn't exist on this endpoint, we get an error. And then you can see the next step now is that we actually remove that item from the array again. We're doing like a reverted mutation, which is a splice operation. The cool thing about this is that we can actually make this possible for everything. So for example, if you were to define an action in your app, we could have something like revert mutations on error. Kind of like that's what it's doing. And it's exactly the same kind of action. The only thing is that, and even if you do stuff asynchronously, it doesn't matter. We have full control of that. So if there's some kind of error thrown inside this action, it will just reverse all the mutations that was performed inside this action. And this might sound like, is that even possible? How can you ensure that it will actually revert it correctly? But I think it, in theory, this should work. Even complex stuff like sorting and stuff, we will be able to correctly revert that. But yeah, the point is that an implementation like this, having a generic way to wrap actions to revert any mutations if there's an error, that requires a little bit more work. But the most important work is the reversion of the mutations. So what I want to do is, I'm really happy about this, and I think we should make an Overmind GraphQL package out of this. And then it will have the implementation of, that will just be the default. So whenever a mutation errors, it will automatically revert the update here. And that is a really nice isolated scenario to test this out. And it's just like this should be part of GraphQL for sure. And then we can move that stuff into what I'm talking about here, creating like a revertible action or whatever we want to call it. Yes, so that's basically it. I also talked in Code Sandbox about this API, and I have mentioned this before. The dashboard of Code Sandbox is using GraphQL quite heavily, and it's very complicated stuff. It's a lot of stuff pointing to the cache, manipulating the cache, and all this. And we talked about trying out this API and see how the dashboard code would look if we did this approach instead. So yeah, basically what I want to do is create a branch of Code Sandbox, put this code into Code Sandbox, refactor the dashboard, and see how it looks. and how it works. So we have something practical. If it looks great, the code will be moved into an Overmind GraphQL package. And with the revertible update of mutations that goes wrong and stuff. And yeah, and then maybe hopefully through this process there will be some feedback. We maybe notice stuff related to what the dashboard of Code Sandbox needs in terms of functionality, and then we have something really solid. Cool. I guess that's it. Just wanted to share that. Thanks for watching, and please, if you have any feedback, just write it on YouTube, send me a message on Twitter, whatever. Yeah, bye-bye.